what can you do? Logistics, right? So this is a question actually for both Ricardo and Lisa. So grassroots gets thrown around a lot. It's a phrase that I think we often hear. And I would say both of the presentations that you gave really showed the power of actual grassroots. You are people that do, you know, other things and then sort of are like, hey, this is something that we really need to do. How do you think that nonprofits who typically have sort of their structures in place and, you know, a lot of, let's face it, bureaucracy and things that go along with it, how can they sort of harness that kind of energy and creativity in the programs that they run?
I think having events like this, having events where you get people in a room, and my experience with technology is we talk about social media, but it really is about the social experience and bringing people together in a room to do creative things and to remind people who care about the work that you're doing why they care about the work that they're doing and the kind of community that they're also part of. That's
what I would say is experiment. Start small. Don't get rid of the office and send everyone home to work remotely. But really start with an experiment. Partner with a smaller organization or group. Try something different. Say, you know what, for the summer, everybody's working from home 3 days a week, 1 day a week. You decide how it works and really try new things and just really see if it works for you and find ways to fix and pivot. Don't commit all in. I know I've pivoted many times with this project over 5 years, but I was always willing to experiment. I had something that worked great, and all of a sudden I saw something that worked better, completely left it, and moved everything over to the new platform. So it's being willing to pivot and try small things and move forward.
Excellent, thank you. And one more question for Samir, and then I'm turning the mic over to you.
Actually, can I, before you go on, can I just jump in there very quickly? Sorry, I have my human resources hat on right now. And I love the bureaucracy. I mean, everything I do in the world is to help bureaucracies be better, right? And so I think we always say we're caught down by the bureaucracy, but one thing that's really important to remember is that we are the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is not this nebulous thing that controls the way we do our work. The bureaucracy is us and the way we operate. And so one of the things is, if you're saying the bureaucracy is holding me down, one of the questions you should ask is, what am I doing that's not different? What am I doing that's the same? And then start questioning why I'm doing it this way. And if I'm doing it because someone above me told me that's the way it's done, then maybe question them. Say, why are you doing it this way? Not in a malicious way. Say, I would like to understand. And in most cases, we're doing it because that's the way it's always been done, rather than understanding that there's another way of doing it. And by questioning that, and just in a truly understanding way, you change the bureaucracy, because again, we are the bureaucracy, and as we operate in the way we want to, the bureaucracy operates that way as well. Sorry, I just totally hijacked your question.
No, that's actually sort of funny because you sort of answered my question, but I have another one for you. No, it really was here. Something along the lines of, you worked in a lot of large organizations with bureaucracy. So, another question though. You talk a lot about the power of the crowd and sort of basically crowdsourcing, individuals to do work on your behalf. But for a lot of organizations, that can be quite scary, because that means that you're entrusting those individuals who are ambassadors for your organization to go out there and do that work. So how do you think organizations can make the leap from sort of being, insular and controlling, not just their messaging, but their service delivery, to sort of adopting the model that you talked about?
So I think a lot of that comes down to the reality is that we already do this, except we do it through MOUs, and we do it through service agreements, and we do it through contracts. And I mean, right now I'm working with the government, and literally the government doesn't do anything really but fund service delivery organizations, right? Like, the government doesn't actually have service, they fund service delivery organizations. So when I tell them, hey, let's try and get volunteers to do something, or let's try and do, they're like, oh no, we don't want people doing government's work. I'm like, that's what you do. So starting to think about, how do you actually reframe the agreements that you already have? You're already getting people to deliver services. Maybe push it, say, hey, I'm gonna get you to deliver these services for me, or you're gonna do these things. I'm gonna bring you in, but bring in 2 friends to do it with you. So you have a trust relationship already, and then you experiment, as Ricardo said, you experiment, try something small, try 1 person, try 2 people, eventually you try an entire peer-to-peer network. So, I mean, Taxi itself started with 3 families. Right? They started with that family by family, started with 3 families, and they tracked them over 2 years. It's now a whole program with over 700 families in Australia participating. But they couldn't have done that if they didn't have 1 family they trusted, and then they found another one, and they kept moving from there. So scale up.
Can I jump in? Please. Okay, I'm going to jump in on some of these questions. learning from a company like Apple. I used to work at Apple years ago, and I went through their training, and I'll sum it up for you in about 3 seconds. The entire training for the company was this. They sat me in a room, they had me watch a video about the history of Apple, and they said, okay, we trust you. We hired you because you're good. Go out there and make people happy. And I was like, what? So when is the training going to start? They said, no, we believe in you. You know how to make people happy. And they put me behind the cash, and I was on the floor, like that was it. Trust the people that you have working with you. Just because you have one person in leadership doesn't mean that they know the best or have the best ideas. The people actually doing the work are sometimes the smartest people because they know what's going on in real time. So really trust your people and give them a chance to fly. They'll surprise you.
All right, so now I'm going to open it up to you guys, and please, our Jason and Jane are still here. Yeah, do you guys want to come on up and hang out on this couch, stand me behind this podium? And please just stick up your hand and I'll bring the mic over and ask our excellent panel of speakers some questions.
Hi, a question for Ricardo and Lisa. Given your experience, your professional experience with the work that you did, how would you define viral now?
Thank you, Lisa. Viral is a result, not a campaign. That's the best definition I've heard of it. If you're trying to do something that's going to go viral, stop. You're going down the wrong path. Do something that you care about. People care about passion, people care about stories, and find compelling ways to share that information and excite people rather than going viral.
I would see viral as something that's just self-perpetuating and that really interests people and that is a bit disruptive. It cuts the monotony of that, what is now the digital experience of something that's really stands out. Whether that's really compelling storytelling, whether that's a really well done meme that really draws people into the essence of what you're doing and makes people want to share it with their friends.
All right, come on, I know you guys have questions. There's a lot of interesting stuff that came out today. Don't be shy.
So kind of throwing, I guess, everything into one question. When you're, the whole viral thing and passion and grassroots and bureaucracy and everything and data and all of that stuff. Now when you're, when you work in a small shop and you are a team of, well, pretty much one person doing the job, you know, that data management and everything, I find that, you know, a lot of times you end up siloed. You end up siloed and just completely separate from those that are out in the field collecting, you know, what you are inserting in your database at work. So I guess my question to you guys is, how can a person that is siloed and is just there in front of that computer and the one that's managing that data, but is driven by the passion that, you know, they have for the work that's being done, how does that one person put that passion into the work that they're doing that is just data management? Like, you know, it can become very monotonous.
So I come from the snowflake model. If anyone follows political organizing and Obama's snowflake model, for me, and what you say about trust really resonates. I think it's about finding and human resources, finding your resources, and whether that's 2 or 3, you know, volunteers or people that you are actually working with, to try to empower them to help in the process. And I'm sure you're already doing that. Most nonprofits are depending a lot on volunteers, and that's another conversation altogether. But I think it is to remember that you're not alone, right?
What I'd like to do is a blend of the technology and old school. I'm a little old school. So I pick up the phone and I call people. I go out and I shake hands and I listen to what people have to say. So when someone signs up to our network, I use the technology to automatically send them messages so that the second or third message they get is, hey, I'm Ricardo. We created this thing. Could you tell me why you signed up? And you'd be amazed. Every day or two, I get an email from someone saying, so glad you asked, and then they tell me exactly why they signed up. So I have real data from real people in their own words, and I PDF every single one of those emails and I save them. So when I have to go back and say, what direction do I go to next? I go right back to what people said. It's not some data that I'm mapping that looks beautiful in a graph. These are the words that they're using. So I'm putting that into my SEO and my analytics, and I reverse engineer that. I mean, every chance I get to get out there, as I call it, shake hands and kiss babies, I do that. It's just meet people and get very interested in them, and it makes your data way more meaningful, and you don't feel like you're in a silo.
Jason or Jane, did either of you want to jump in on that?
I would echo what Ricardo said. I used to work the front lines as a youth worker, and moving to a role where it's more kind of, I sit in front of a computer most days, and it's trying to find those opportunities and actually building that into part of the process. So there's students I still keep in touch with, and making sure that taking the time to sit down with them every once in a while to sort of stay connected to all of it, because I know that over time you start feeling that distance, where I love the work that I'm doing, but nothing beats being able to sit down with one of the students and just seeing them benefit from having a quick conversation, but building that into the process.
Just building on what everyone else has said here, definitely start building a team if you're one person, and trust the people that come to you because they are already passionate about your cause. At TechSoup, there's only 7 of us. We're completely virtual, so all of us are pretty much in front of that computer all day long. We have recently just gone to a flat structure, which means every single one of us is in customer service, every single one of us is in marketing, every single one of us is in data analysis and business development. It's been really, really fun, and what it has really taught me is that right now TechSoup is no longer I'm the ED of TechSoup. I still say that, but honestly, I'm just one of 7 people. And decisions get made every Friday when we have team meetings. We sit down and talk about what should we do as a team, what's the next step, what are some of the challenges that we're facing, and how do we actually put our members first.
Add one more thing to that, sorry. It's easy to forget that when you're in front of your computer crunching numbers or something, that your work is actually fascinating, and it feels like work to you. So you don't realize just how interesting it is. Share. I think sharing is something that we don't do often enough, and I know the design lab this afternoon we're going to be talking about storytelling. But one of our data analysts that I used to work with at Mars, every 3 weeks would just put 20 minutes in our calendar for the team who didn't work really with him, and say, hey, here's a cool visualization I did based on the data I collected. 20 minutes of our time every 3 weeks. But after a while, we'd go to him and say, hey, remember when you were talking about that? Help us figure this out. And then he would post it on the Mars blog. And then all of a sudden, people from around the world would be like, hey, that's cool, we're looking at the same things. So share, put it on a website, put it on a blog, go on MailChimp and start a newsletter. And I'm serious, I will subscribe. So put my email address down on there. I'm one of those people that's like 1,000 emails a day, but I read them all. So because if you share what you're doing, people are going to be fascinated by your work, even though it doesn't seem fascinating on a day-to-day basis. And it then makes you part of a community that you didn't know you had.
That's great. There's an app out there called Tiny Letter, which is made by MailChimp, but as Samir was talking, if you don't know about it, definitely check it out. It basically allows you to create your own fascinating newsletter, and some people are putting some amazing stuff out there. I think we have another question over here.
Actually, the question is for anyone, but it relates to the mobile segment in the speakers. What's your take on Yahoo's no more work from home memo in 2013? Like, have they changed that, or that just seems to fly in the face of what's happening?
Anyone want to touch that?
Let's just throw it in here.
Yeah.
Good luck.
She didn't leave, unfortunately.
I think it's worth noting that not everyone's suited to work from home, right? I mean, so I think I'm trying to rationalize where this is going. No, there's probably a reason for it. It baffles me. But I think the movement that Chitra talked about is like letting people decide what workspace works for them. So even for us, like I like working in an office, right? Even if you give me the opportunity from work from home, I will get dressed and go to work. But letting me set up my workspace in an open concept rather than being in a cubicle or something like that, it's kind of trying to understand what motivates people to be productive, efficient, and have impact, and tapping into that. And maybe, again, I'm not speaking for Yahoo here, but maybe Yahoo found that their employees are motivated by coming to the office. I don't know. But maybe that's, I'm trying to rationalize.
Sorry. Sorry. I'll jump in there. I've been a Yahoo shareholder since the late 90s. I'm not speaking on behalf of Yahoo, but I follow them very, very closely. My understanding is that when they actually crunched the numbers for people that were working from home, that people that allegedly were working, and I use that in quotation marks, air quotes, they found that people like that there was a disparity between what was supposed to be happening and what was happening. So I think in this particular situation, it was that the records are showing that people weren't actually logging in to clock in the hours or do the things that they were being paid to do. That being said, I think that this is atypical and flying sort of in the face of it, but I think that Yahoo had its own kind of things that they need to iron out. But overall, I think the general trend is still towards, in a high trust environment, that, going mobile is sort of the direction that most organizations seem to be headed in.
Can I jump in there too? Yeah, actually I worked as a freelancer for years and years, and before that I was a grad student, so I know a lot about working alone in front of my computer. And shameless plug, changed my life. Center for Social Innovation changed my life because it was a reason for me to get up and go somewhere where there are other people working and shoot ideas off of people and high five when I got a big contract and have a shot when I lost a big contract. So I think that there is something to be said for coming together and working with other people. But I also think people can be as unproductive at work in the office as they can be at home. So it's really about utilizing that time so that you're as creative and as inspired as you can be. And then when you're not, just go do something else, because we need to take a break and our work days are too long anyway.
I'll also add to that, everything everyone said is totally on point. What I think makes the most sense is really measuring the results instead of the work. The work and checking your email all day long is not work. It feels like work, and I know we have to do it, we got to do a thing, we got to move in, be like, oh yeah, I'm productive. No, you're not. Measure the results that you produce. If you're here to grow membership, did someone sign up today? That is the result. Checking your email is not actual work. So we sometimes can miss that when we're working in an office. I also work from home, and my wife and I have a workspace that we go to just to change things up, because it does become this treadmill and this echo chamber. So having flexibility when you work and knowing what to measure, I think, are key to productivity, whether you're in an office or working from home.
Yes, hugely important.
Sorry, I was just going to add, as someone who works part-time from Miami, I understand the pros and cons. I'm sorry, I know. I understand the pros and cons of working in an office with your team as well as working remotely. So when I first started, I was like, booyah, Miami, working remote, freedom, yay. Then I realized I was missing a lot of the informal conversations that was happening in the office. So yes, I was still there for the meetings and all of these things, but the culture, the team culture, I wasn't a part of as much. And then I started begging to be on Google Hangout permanently when we're at work. And it took a long time for my team to say yes, because they thought it was kind of creepy. But honestly, I felt much more like part of the team. I was able to contribute to conversations, make jokes, we do sing-alongs. And the last point I will make too is, just because we have 40-hour work weeks doesn't mean we work 40 hours. Let's be real about that, okay? All the meetings that we have, all of these things, email checking that we do, times I sneak onto Facebook, we have about 3 hours of real productive time a day. So let's be real about that, accept it, and add fun, relaxation, mental health back into our work. However you want to do it, whether it be in an open office where everybody can talk about ideas, brainstorm, collaborate, or all week, I can't even talk today, work remotely, but the key is that you want to concentrate on the results that your team is working on. What is the thing that you are actually trying to achieve, and how to do it in the most fun and magical way possible. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. So time for one last quick question.
I don't know how quick it is to answer. Jen, you brought up the digital divide globally, and in Canada, we still experience that too. I think it's easy within an urban landscape to forget that there are lots of people in Canada that don't have the same access for various reasons, whether it's ability, whether it's remoteness, what have you. And it's a challenge that we face as an organization because we are trying to mobilize nationally. What are some strategies or some things to bear in mind for every one of you when you're trying to build a network, trying to build a movement to ensure that you're not just taking the input that you're getting, the engagement that you're getting online, but also actively trying to seek out the people who can't engage at the same level?
Technology is not the end all of everything, right? I would say as organizations, we need to lean into our strength. So if you are working in a community where you don't have broadband access, don't go into the cloud. Go have offline conversations, meet in person, have those face-to-face conversations, but think about how you can use technology to collect the data in the back end so that you can put it on the internet, but the interaction that you're having with your member is in person. Do what actually is right for your members, for your community, and not necessarily, I know for the person that just talked about the Internet of Things, I find this kind of funny, don't follow the shiny. Really, honestly, everything, technology brings a lot of wonderful things to you at the end of the day, but decision of what to use, how to use it, that power still lies in your hands. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to. If it's not making your life easier, if it's not making the lives of your members easier, don't bother. But of course, experiment and scare.
I'd also like to comment to that question. I've worked on some campaigns with remote communities. I think two things that were really useful is making partnerships or building partnerships with organizations that do work with those communities, and then also building relationships with local community press. So getting into the local community papers that get thrown on the people's doors or at their houses can be a good way to start, at least to get your message out.
Sorry, I just want to shamelessly plug public libraries here. I don't know the exact number, but there was like a statistics done, at least in Toronto, like in some large percentage of Toronto Public Library users are actually people coming to use their computers and things like that because they don't have access at home. These kinds of resources exist in a lot of communities. I think tap into those. I'm a self-proclaimed Luddite. I write more letters than I send emails in a year. So also to remember, technology doesn't necessarily mean in front of a computer screen. Just the fact that I can put something in the post today and it reach Vancouver in 2 days, that's a triumph of technology as well. So start thinking about what does actually technology mean to the users that you're engaging with, and maybe helping them push boundaries, but within their levels of access as well.
With regards to the digital divide, like one of the things that I'm working on is trying to, like, there's a way to run through phone numbers to determine exactly what kind of phone number it is. So is it a mobile number, is it a landline? And that will help inform, how we approach communicating with some of our students. And I think that's important because it's not necessarily like an all-in kind of proposition that, like, I think if it works for a specific population that does have the technology, great, but also being mindful and building sort of equitable practices. So an example that I'll give is we did, when I used to work in Frontlines in Kitchener, is that we would have ticket giveaways. And typically we'd post them on Facebook and say, okay, first come, first serve, but that would be favoring everyone who has access to like a smartphone and can, respond very quickly. But setting aside a portion of them as well, it's like for people that don't have access to Facebook and don't have access to internet, that we had those in our records as well. So just being very mindful and, but not necessarily just saying don't do it all together, but just being aware of all the different people that you serve and what may work.
All right. Thank you so much. Can I just get a final round of applause for our fantastic speakers? You guys have been amazing. Lots of fantastic ideas in the projector. Okay, so we are going to take a break in a minute. But first, what I'm hoping that we can do is a little bit of business, and that is to get our mentors and mentees all matched up. Hello? So, this is